My guests today are Warner and Chris from Brother Oh Brother. How are you guys doing?
Doing great.
Doing well.
You guys are from Indianapolis.
We're
Allegedly.
allegedly. We live in we're in some smaller
Small towns.
You're in a really small town.
Yeah. I live in a town of 900 people. It's tiny.
Mine's 25,000.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're close to the other, and we proudly are from those places. But for band purposes, it doesn't go well to be like, oh yeah. I'm from.
Yeah, to book from Morgantown, Indiana doesn't really
sound
do
as,
the trick.
Yeah, it doesn't sound as enticing.
Yeah.
So you guys are from both from a smaller town, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did that make it hard to get the band up and running?
Not at all.
Not really, no. We are always pretty committed to just getting out and going wherever. So if you can do that, then it doesn't matter where you're actually from. There's not really anywhere to play in my town, and there's only a few tiny little places to play in his. But
and they're not really places to play.
Yeah.
They're more like music happens to occasionally take place there.
Right, yeah. Yeah. But for the most part, we just, that's why we say we're from Indy. A lot of the places where we played locally are in Indy, and so that's kind of what we said for our hub location, I guess.
Yeah.
For anyone that's not familiar with Brother Oh Brother, I'll say up front, you guys put on a crazy live show, but how would you describe your music?
I don't know, probably just two-piece, garage rock, probably.
Yeah. That's how I say now especially. I think that is the most easy description for us.
Yeah, and it's just, we might mix different, I don't know, versions of that or whatever, but yeah, that's just two-piece fuzz rock or something.
Has that been the style of music that you both have been in pretty much your whole life, or did your style sort of change?
No, I'm into all kinds of different music. I know that's kind of a cliche thing to say, but I really listen to all kinds of different music, and some stuff that is nowhere near what we play right now. But
a lot of feelings in that music.
lots of emotional stuff. But I've played in bands in different genres and played in folk bands and rap rock bands and everything else over the years, but this is the first band I've ever played this style of music in, but it's the most enjoyable to play, I think, for me.
This was I've been in, I guess, what I would consider one real band before this, and this was always the type of band I wanted to play in. It's just the style of music is what I'm most passionate about, and so I did all the booking for the other band, and so once I just stopped booking, we stopped playing shows pretty quickly. So that ended that, and so I started this band, and my whole thought was just all right, I want to make this band in my image of sorts, just the way, however I would want it to, I guess, be, and how me and Warner got together was just dumb luck, and but it's been great, man.
Do you want to tell us about that story?
Yeah, sure.
It's a story that many have heard, but I think people like it. It's a good story.
Many have heard, few care to hear. No, just
I like the story.
It's a good story.
It's a fun story.
So I was trying to get this band together. Actually, we had a bass player for the first 6 to 8 months of the band. I had a drummer who was kind of scheduled to do some stuff, but his business just blew up, and he's like, "Hey, I don't have time to do this," and I was like, "No problem." And so I was looking for a drummer. I already had a good amount of songs written for it. I went to Lowe's. I ran cross country all through high school, and this was a few years back or whatever. But I was going to get some rope cut. They have rope that's good for stretching and stuff there. And I pressed the little button, and Warner comes over there, and I'm like, "Hey," he looked familiar. And I go, "Were you in a band, blah, blah, blah?" And he's like, "Yeah, I was in this band called Nuclear After Party or whatever." And we started talking. We're like, "Oh, yeah, we were both at these kind of real kind of meh bands." And when you're in these real meh bands, you end up on a lot of the same bills because people may not.
Both bands kind of drew pretty well for what they were. And so there'd
We
be
had a lot
like
of friends.
Yeah, we had a lot of friends, and so there'd be like these shows where they'd be like, well, we need a lot of these little Rugrats to come out to these shows, so we'll put these two bands together, and it'd just be like all our friends or whatever.
Yeah. But yeah, so we, and I was like, oh, okay. Well, I'm actually starting this new thing, blah, blah, blah. Would you want to try? And he's like, sure. And like, literally, we probably, if I wouldn't have briefly remembered his face, I'm sure neither one of us would have probably remembered either existing.
Yeah.
Because we didn't really know each other. And then we just started practicing at his dad's church, and that was it. And this band should not exist.
And the like fun, heartwarming part of that story is that like we're like best friends now, and our wives are best friends, and our kids love each other, and it's just like weird happenstance that like none of that would have happened without this band, and it's just kind of a weird.
Yeah, there's so many things that
weird
if
thing.
the band wouldn't have happened for our lives together for sure. So it's pretty cool.
Did you recognize Chris when he approached you?
Yeah.
That's good. I barely recognized who you were.
No,
I was like, you looked familiar.
No, he had at the time he had pretty iconic hair, and just he had a pretty recognizable look. He's long and gangly and had
now I cut off all my power.
Afro
cut off all my power.
I'm like, yeah, I know that guy.
When you first got together to start playing, was the style the two-piece? Well, you said you had a bass player for a while, but was it the two-piece fuzz power right away? Or?
Yeah, well, yeah, it was the same kind of thing. It was like White Stripes if they had a bass player.
A little bit,
like kind of the
like
idea.
a really crappy version of it, for sure.
I'm sorry, what happened to the bass player?
He's a really cool guy.
Terrible accident.
We're still friends. No, we're still friends with him. He's a really cool guy. He just
he fell out of a helicopter.
No, that's the story we're telling. I forgot that. No.
Yeah, and it just needs to change every time.
Yeah, no, that's good.
No, he's the best. His name's Cody. He's the best. He was just dealing with some life stuff at the time, and he needed to step out for a second. And we were like, all right. I had told Warner, I was like, let's commit to just being a two-piece instead of searching for a bass player for a while. And if it sucks, we'll go find a bass player. But if not, like, let's do this and let's see.
Well, we both had friends that were in bands too that we've seen like the rosters change a bazillion times, and it's just like that's like
we don't want anything to do with
so
that.
hard to follow. We don't want to be that, and we don't want so we're like, all right, well, we don't know. We know that we're both gonna do this, so let's just stick to it and see what happens with the two of us. And then eventually it just kind of developed into what we're doing now, and I don't know how you would be able to really add even somebody to it. So
yeah, there's one person I think on planet Earth that we're halfway tempted at times to maybe add because he could do a lot of things.
Yeah.
Who's that?
I guess it'd be two people, and so in a dream world we'd have Al Kramer.
Yeah.
We want someone who could play
from
keys
Milwaukee.
and bass and guitar, who could just play a bunch of stuff. Or there's a guy, he keeps asking, and I keep every once in a while, if he hears this, he'll be so cheesed off that I'm like, yeah, we're thinking about it, because we probably won't. But Adam Shuntich, he's a really good friend. And he's the hard part, he'd have to play bass because he's such a better guitar player than me that he needs to play bass so that he doesn't
Usurp you.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Is it kind of hard having being the only string player?
No, it's great. It's the best. Because there's no rules. You don't have to worry about anything, and it makes writing way faster and live.
For sure.
It's so much looser. Because if something happens or if I'm it doesn't have to be a piano recital because I can just be like, oops, Warner, just keep going, or Warner, we're gonna end here, or I'll just make sure to do a walk down on a solo, and he knows oh, all right, we're gonna end. And versus if we had a full band, we'd be looking around and I'm trying to all right, we're gonna do this now and that. It's just so much looser.
Yeah.
And you guys are both going crazy the whole show. Is it hard to follow Chris sometimes when he's climbing on bars and?
Not really. We've done it for so long now that it's not very difficult. I can kind of keep up with him and where he's going. We kind of know where those spots are going to be more or less.
It's like P. Landers Z.
Yeah.
I fly, don't fly.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah.
P. Landers Z's a band you guys played with. You guys did a short tour with them, right?
No, we just opened for them a couple times.
Yeah, we've opened for them twice.
They're gonna be in Indy at the
do
Mel
it again.
on a Monday.
Dude, I'd do it in a heartbeat. That'd be insane. If we don't open for them, we should at least go. That'll be fun.
Yeah,
but
especially at the Mel.
Dude, they're super awesome. They're really nice. Their show is
we just love that kind of bands.
Inspiring. Yeah, it's
so just, like we always talk about like when the band ends because it probably will someday. But we talk about how the moment the band ends, we want to just make like a full-on gimmick band. Like we want to make this wrestling band where like if you were playing like a 30-minute set, like 20 to 22 minutes of it would be music, and the other 8 we would just wrestle each other like across America, like just everywhere we'd go. We'd just do barroom wrestling against each other for the belt, like in every city in the U.S. It'd be great. Wrestling
does seem to kind of tie in with the band a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Currently, are you guys fans?
Yeah, well, we love wrestling, so like you can't we can't integrate it too much into like what we're doing because it's like, you know, it'll make our music gimmicky in a sense that it wouldn't make sense for this band. But there's like, gosh, we're such losers. The psychology of wrestling, like makes so much sense in the thought of how you put together a live performance as a band. So in like wrestling, there's always like high spots where someone, you know, will do like some 450 splash or some like really big, you know, like a tombstone or some gross move. And you're always building up towards these moments. And the same as like for your band, like it should be like where you're like within your a good live show, you're building towards certain moments and things you want to get towards. And also the like the rise of being a successful wrestler is so similar to being in a good band. Like when you're in a band, you play all these crappy shows and you just keep going and playing these all over the U.S. You play these cruddy shows, and then people start to like you and you get to play a little better shows. And whereas a wrestler, you're driving all over the place. You're wrestling in like the mega undercard for like 7 minutes. You're probably going to like, you know, eat like a bunch of pins, but then people like you a little bit and you get to play better shows and work with better companies. And it's so similar. Like the whole parallels to it, and like we just love that stuff. So
yeah,
I look forward to hearing if that ever happens, if the Wrathful on wrestling angle happens for Brother Oh Brother.
I'm sure it will happen at some point.
At some point in our lives, I'm
sure there will be a time.
It's a bucket list item for sure.
Yeah, they'll be like, we'll have like a 6-month break, and we'll be like, you know what? Let's just take a more break and let's start up this other wrestling band. That would be a band we would want to have, I think, a couple people in.
I think so too. Yeah,
because it'd be better to have like
factions and tag teams.
Right,
yeah.
And you can't be a faction with 2 people.
Right, correct.
And I apologize, you probably are asked this a billion times. How did Brother Oh Brother get their name? Because the first time I heard you guys, I thought you're brothers.
Well, it's not a exciting story by any stretch of the imagination. It just was a text chain between the then 3 of us. Throwing out all kinds of names, and we had toyed around with like, you know, what we wanted name wise, and we like Chris has a real like I don't know, like a celebrity-ish name. You know, Chris Banta has
that's
like
that's a celebrity-ish name.
I think so. I don't know. So there,
I was just born with that. I wouldn't know any different.
I know at that time Cody and I were like, we were talking about like, oh, Chris Banta and you were like, I don't want it to be like my name.
Oh, that sucks.
Like, yeah, so we were like, okay, well, we're not gonna do that, and we had thrown around, I don't know, 4 or 5 different things, and I think Cody,
my name was better for a singer-songwriter kind of crap that I don't
right,
name myself
and I think one of the things that had kind of like meshed into this is like, I think Cody had said Chris Bannett and the Brotherhood or something like that.
That's actually pretty good.
I think. Well, I think that's something that we had said. Well, at the time with 3 people, that makes a little more sense than with 2. I'm the Brotherhood. Anyway, so that was like the kind of the angle, and Chris was like, "Well, I don't really want my name as like the thing," but he's like, something with that like Brotherhood thing sounds good. I like the vibe of that.
I'd forgotten that you guys wanted to use my name.
Yeah, and so
I hated it so much. I blotted it from my memory.
So I'm passionate about naming albums and songs and bands, and like that's something I really love to do. Like Chris sometimes is just like, we'll name a song off of a lyric. He's like, yeah, just whatever. But I'm like, I want to come up with like this crazy song name, and we have a couple of times. But
there'll be times because like I write like the lyrics and everything, but there'll be times I'm like, here, you can name this song or something, or like this one I've got sucks. You try to come up with something.
Yeah, because I love naming songs, and that's just something. So I was all about this. I was like, all right, sweet. So I just started just slingshotting a bunch of just Brotherhood-esque names down the line, and at some point I was like, well, what about Brother Oh Brother? And I was
like, that sounds
they're
good.
Like, oh, yeah, they're like,
we just didn't want it to sound stupid.
They're like, yeah, that sounds good. Let's go for that. And
that was it.
That was it. I mean, I like the name fine. There's other times where we've like thought of stuff. We're like, dang, that's a really cool band name. That would have been really cool. But once you're established, you can't really. I mean, you got to stick to it, man. Yeah. So and we don't hate it. So
we spent too much money on like vinyl and merch, and it's too late now.
Yep. Yeah. So but we like it. It's fine.
Yeah.
Anyone interested? There's a video for that song "Monster Truck."
There is.
How did you get a monster truck for the video?
Well, first thing, if you go to look for it right now, it's not online, and that is because we gave exclusive rights to a YouTube channel for quite a bit of Romanus content.
Yeah,
and the guy who ran it said some really dumb, like 9th grader racist like jokes, like what you would like hear like when you're a freshman in high school, and you'd be, and then you're like, oh yeah, that's terrible, like that's not funny, and so his channel is like imploding right now, so all that stuff got pulled. So we are searching for a new like host for it. Like it'll be back up probably this week.
That's the hope, yeah.
I mean, we can just post it personally and stuff, but we're trying to find a good channel for a good home. Anyways, so a lot of this band has just been about, and especially as we've maybe slowed down a little bit, we've focused on this even more about experiential things. Like, what can this band provide for us to do as a vehicle that without it would be difficult? So, like, we're playing in Europe this year for the first time, and without the band, we probably would never go to Europe.
I would not find any...
Like, the time, finances, all that stuff wouldn't shake itself out.
Yeah.
So, I wrote the song... I wanted just the EP called Monster Truck because I just thought it sounded dope. And I wrote the song Monster Truck first, and then everything else kind of came after that. And he's like, that's cool. Sounds great. And we kept going forward and stuff like that. And then I was like, man, it'd be amazing if we could find a real monster truck for a music video. Just be the best. And I just started looking like everywhere, and I was just trying to find information. If there's like, could I rent one? Like, you know, for the day, like what would it cost? I was like, I'd pay $1,000 if I could get, access to a monster truck just for a little while. And someone told me, I saw a monster truck on 31, which is like the main highway drag where we live, and it was a real monster truck. And I took a picture, and I was like, only in Franklin, and like it was like being like towed. And someone said, no, that guy lives around here, and he does like he'll do like sponsored events and stuff. I'm like, no way. She's like, yeah, like some like lady from I've known from church and stuff. And so I start scouring the earth. I'm like, no way. So this guy runs like a monster truck school. He's in Florida right now, but he'll be back in a little bit. And you can go like learn how to drive a monster truck. And we're talking, the dude lives 7 minutes from my house. And so I said,
but it's just kind of out in the middle of nowhere. You would never, it's not.
You have no idea.
You, even if you drove by it, you'd have no clue. You'd be like, oh, that's a lot of dirt mounds.
Guy's got a lot of junk out there.
Yeah.
And so I sent him a message, and he's so redneck good old boy. he didn't even quite understand what I was asking, and I was just like, I was trying to like to not geek out too hard, and I was like, no, like, can we just pay you for, you know, I don't know, like 4-5 hours of your time, because we did it all in a pretty small span of time.
The whole thing was less than 8 hours for sure.
Way less.
Like, yeah, it was a short day.
And he's like, I was like, what's fair? And he's like, I don't know. I was like, it's $500. And I thought it'd be way low. He's like, no, that's great, man. You want to give me $500? Chase you, it's round monster truck. That's fine. Sounds great. You come on out. And I was like, sweet. And I called one. I'm like, we have a real monster truck in a stupid video. Like,
did you get to drive it?
No, but we're going to.
Yeah.
We didn't have time that day. And I was just so conscious of not holding this guy up at all. So we got a bunch of equipment donated for some friends and from some guitar stores and stuff that we were like, all right, we'll use in the video and then just have it destroyed. Patrick Roberts from WCZR, he's up here playing this halfway to a mile with us, and their band is on their label as well. He had this as his friend. He had this head, this just the world's worst amp head, and I wanted it to be smashed.
Yeah.
And we got him a new head and a new cabinet. And I was like, you're too good to be playing that. Like, you're a great guitar player and you have a great sound. You need better equipment. And we found a great deal. We love you. Have this. And he's like, sweet. And I was like, but you have to give me you have to promise you won't use that other head
you have
anymore.
to give us the other one.
And so, like, you have to give it to us. And then, like, and we had it crushed by this monster truck. But dude, it didn't break at first.
No, it was indestructible.
Like, all this other stuff was like obliterated, and this thing in the video like flips like 10 times. It's directly under the tire, and it lifts the monster truck off the ground.
Right.
So if you haven't seen the video, the monster truck just runs over all the equipment and kind of trying to run you guys down.
The idea was we wanted like the Scooby-Doo monster montage with
just chase
a monster
us around.
truck.
Because it's like with a lot of the videos, I've always thought like a lot of times I'll maybe come up with an idea or something. I'm like, the important thing is like we get the engaging piece of the video, and we'll worry about the rest of it later. Like some we've put like way more thought into like plot. But like the monster truck's like, all right, we have the monster truck, okay? That's the important part. The rest of it is just pretty whatever. We'll use some band footage and we'll have it destroy all this stuff and just chase us around. Like didn't need to be a whole lot of thought. It's like we have a monster truck. Who cares about the rest of it? Like similar for like our paint video that we did is like build the infrastructure, and then we just need lots of paint. I think we had like 28 gallons of paint, like, and other stuff. It was nuts.
So I was wondering, watching that, so most of it like lines up with the song, but pretty much once you get dumped with the paint, there's a scene where you just get it on the face.
Yeah.
But then it's like you can't go back and, I mean, you really couldn't, right? Go back and wash yourself and start over. So was that just one?
We did we tried to do progressive. So we would do a progressive.
Do like sections of the song and then, but that video was disgusting to shoot, and so that was shot in Morgantown, Indiana, home of 900 people, and we at the end of the day we cleaned up this area. It was the gym in my dad's church, so we cleaned up.
It's like this old like high school.
Yeah,
gym.
It used to be a high school. Yeah, and so we cleaned it all up. And
we just built 12-foot walls. We just built 12-foot walls, painted them baby blue, and put stuff down on the gym floor.
Yeah. And so we took down the walls and all this stuff. It took like 5 hours to get cleaned up from that video. And we're still covered in glitter and paint and everything else. And we're like, all right, well,
we need it changed.
At the time, I didn't live in Morgantown at the time, but my parents do. And I was like, we're going to just walk to my parents' house.
Because we couldn't get back in a car and drive over there.
Yeah, and we're like, we're going to walk to my parents' house and we'll just go take showers and change and stuff. And so, but like our shirts were so crusty and everything, and I had it like all in my beard, that we like walked down the street in these white pants with no shirts on, just covered in
head
paint,
to toe,
in this little tiny town
barefoot.
Of like 900 people. We're barefoot, and everyone's just like staring at us as we're walking down the street
on this little main drag.
Yeah,
of the street.
it was a humble walk, walk of shame. But it turned out great.
There's some guy there's some dude, and there's a little trailer part,
yeah.
And he goes, "What the hell happened?"
Yeah.
He just like looked at it. He just stared.
Yeah. He's just sitting there and staring at us. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was very shocked that he was asking us what happened. We're like, well, don't worry about it.
I've got a question sent in.
Oh, yeah?
What's the longest drive you ever had to get to a single show, and was it worth it?
Longest drive? Like one way? Oh, I've got it. Yeah, for sure. I know.
You know the one.
Yeah. We drove from Anaheim to Portland, Oregon. No, we drove from Anaheim to Eugene.
Eugene, Oregon.
Yeah, and we had an off day in there, and there wasn't supposed to be an off day, but there was. And so we had this show, and we get done, and I'm like, I don't want to waste our off day being out west, not getting to do anything.
Yeah.
So it was 14 hours to our next stop, and I drive about 98% of the time.
At this point, the percentage is crazy. I would say 99.8.
Yeah, we're getting into the percentiles.
We're getting to the point where I don't think. Yeah, it's immeasurable. It's almost just 100.
Yeah. So, anyways, I can pound out some driving when I need to, and I was like, all right, we're gonna go. We're gonna start driving, and we're just gonna go as far as we can go. And I was just kind of mad, and so we start driving. And then at some point, like, we're driving. I mean, it's weird. We're driving through like the desert at night, dude.
Yeah,
You could do anything you want out there. You want to know, like, if you're like a conspiracy theorist, like what the government like does. Where's weird testing? It's there. Okay, just the desert, the California desert in the middle of the night is so bizarre. But I was like, okay, and just the mountains and everything up there. And I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna keep going. And I'd pull over and take like a power nap. And I just keep going. And I was like, all right, we're getting there as soon as possible. And then, like, Warner wakes up, and he was just kind of like, how long have you been driving? I'm like, I stopped, and I took, like, a 2-hour, and I haven't stopped. And he's like, well, where are we? I'm like, we're in Oregon now. And he's like, holy smokes, like, we're going to be there in, like, 3 hours. And, like, I just, like, didn't stop driving. And then, like, I'm pretty thrifty. Some people say I'm very cheap.
Yeah, let me tell this part. Yeah. So Chris is very cheap in some aspects of his life, and so I knew this, and I was like, let's motivate him some more.
I told you to look.
Yeah, it was the day. It was the day that Justice League came out, which I actually enjoy that movie, but that's a sidebar. So
it was fine.
Yeah, it was fine. It was just fine. So Chris and I'm a big comic book nerd, and Chris likes some of that stuff too, and enjoys the movies, and so I was like, hey man, I really want to see Justice League if we have time. I was like, let me just take a look, and we found this
like 11:30 matinee.
11:30 matinee, and I was like, hey, if we can make this matinee, it's like $2 cheaper. And Chris is like, all right,
we're
gonna make it. Turns his hat backwards and pedal to the floor. I don't know. It was like
so
that.
So we took a 17-hour drive through the middle of the night and did it in 14 hours.
Yeah,
so we had 3 hours of rest and gas in between all that.
Yeah, and then we got there and we made it for the matinee. So,
did you sleep during the matinee?
No.
Actually, no. We both stayed awake, and and it was good. And then afterwards, we went out and got some sweatpants and stuff.
Yeah.
To just we went to like Ross or somewhere.
Yeah,
some
we got
cheap
some crusty sweatpants and just dirt balled like super hard, and it was great.
Yeah,
and then we watched Survivor Series that night, and it sucked.
Did we watch Survivor Series?
Yeah, I was at my buddy's house. He had a really nice house.
Yeah.
And watched Survivor Series.
I don't even remember watching that. It must have been that bad that I don't even remember.
It was the first. Well, you fell asleep. You would have thought that you did the driving as quickly as you fell asleep, but
that was the night that I was attacked by a shadow person.
Yeah.
What?
Oh no. There's okay. So you're familiar with like sleep paralysis, and there's like these, there's this theory of like shadow people that attack you in the middle of the night, and there's like different types of shit. Like, so I on the way flying to California on the plane, I was listening to Time Suck with Dan Cummins, and the episode I listened to was about shadow people. I think I spooked myself a little bit too much, and like that night in Oregon, like I felt like like, you know, I felt like I was getting dragged all around the room and you can't wake up or whatever. But yeah, so it's a joke. I always say that I got attacked by a shadow person. Yeah,
an entity.
Yeah, but it just was a case of weird one-off sleep paralysis. So,
well, your first trip to Appleton, when did that take place?
It's been a while. What year is it now?
I think it was in like this is
like
probably 2016,
16 or 17,
yeah,
something like that.
And it was for Mile of Music, and I had just barely heard of it. Chris had known about it for a while, and he's like, dude, all these bands that we like have played or are playing Mile of Music. He's like, we need to get on this thing, and we did, and we
there were
came
just
up
like
here.
3 or 4 other mid-level bands that we were like respected.
Yeah, so he's like, we're gonna come and play this thing, and he's like, I want to make sure that when we're not playing, we're meeting these bands. And I think our first mile, we did every single thing we could. So like anytime that there was like you can pop in and do this thing. So we played the bus, and we played some other one-off thing. But it was like I think we had like 5 shows that they had booked, and we ended up playing like 8 appearances or something crazy in like the span of 3 days. And it was insane and just so much fun. And the takeaway from it was that we had met these cool bands who now have all become really good friends. A lot of them are on the label, and the end result was Chris was like, all right, well, the best way to take advantage of this after we've done this is when it's not mile time is we need to come back here a couple times a year while we're fresh in people's memories. And so we did, and it's kind of become a place where we know that like when we come up to Appleton, we're going to have a consistent, like, good show. Lots of people out there, lots of good friends we've met over the years. And yeah. So we've been back a couple times for Mile, back a bunch of times just randomly throughout the years, and happy to be here.
Yeah, we normally just put it, especially if we're doing a bigger run, we'll just, if we're coming up north at all, we just patch it through.
Yeah.
We've got a caller.
Oh, right on.
You're on with Brother or Brother. What's your question?
Well, first of all, I'd say, Andy, great show. It's a pleasure listening to you. Second of all, I guess a question for Brother or Brother. It's with Romanus Records. How did they get King Gizzard on their label?
So there's this thing that they did a couple years ago where they put out 5 albums in a year. And they had one album that was like a public release where they were just like, yo, here's our new album, and you can do anything you want with it, like anyone on the planet. Have at it. And they give you the masters to like CD, vinyl, 8-track, all kinds of stuff. And so we have just used that to, obviously because King Gizzard is incredible, to do all kinds of stuff. Like we just did those 200 liquid-filled records. We did 150 LED records. I've done some sand-filled. So big love to King Gizzard. Man, I've definitely eaten my bread off of that thing. And I will for sure, I'll do something else, I'm sure, at some point. So, yeah.
Great. Thanks for the call.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So, the record label.
Yeah.
How did you get involved with starting your own label and doing custom vinyl? Just seems like a lot of work to even figure out how to do the stuff you do is amazing.
You know, it is. Like,
it's Chris's full-time job now, so.
Yeah.
Do you have a lot of people coming up to you like, I want to learn how to do that?
Not as many. Most people are just like so blown away. Like they're just like, they just think it's so cool.
They can't even fathom doing it.
Yeah, and because they rightly so assume it's just such work and everything else. And like, I think they just respect them doing it, that they would never be like, hey, tell me how to do that. You know, you've spent like.
You've had 1 or 2 occasionally, but
not very many. It's like, hey, you've spent. This is like part of your life's work. Tell me how you did so I can do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we so when this band, you know, was in its closer infancy and stuff, like one of my big goals was always just to have vinyl for my band. And I was like, man, it'd be so cool if my band had vinyl. And you know, we did our first 7-inch, and it was so cool. And it was such a validating thing, like just for any band, like all these little steps all matter. And we always try to keep good perspective about that. And so we did the 7-inch, and I'm a record collector, and I always was like, man, it'd be so cool if we just had some really sick custom stuff. And So I started experimenting with different, just on how to make like some liquid filled records. And there's no like, you can't like hop online and be like, how do I make like, because like right now there's, I think maybe 4 of us on the planet that make them. 4, maybe 5. And then I was struggling to do it. And then it just dawned on me. I'm like, this is stupid. There's this whole other art space that no one is exploring. And I thought there's so much more that could be done. And so I started making all kinds of stuff. So we had been on a couple independent labels, and our second album was out on PhonoFlow Records. Our first album, we didn't have pressed to vinyl because at the time we weren't big enough for anyone to care. But our second album and our 7-inch sold out so well that we brought back our first album to get it pressed after the fact. And that's when I was determined to make something. And this was all still on PhonoFlow Records. And I made these glow-in-the-dark Dinobone filled records. And I needed people to know who was making them. I needed them to know it wasn't the label we were on. It was me. And so I'd always had this idea for the label, but I never knew what it would be. It sounded cool in my brain. And so I made Romanus Records so people would know that I was making them. So if it was like, this album's out on PhonoFlow Records and these customs are made by Romanus Records, whatever. Well, the first time, and it was actually our first time we were coming up here. It was our first time. It was like for the mile, I think. We were coming to Wisconsin.
Yeah.
We had never been to Wisconsin. And so we had these Dinobone records, and they were $60 a pop, and we had 60 of them. And I was just like, man.
Oh, yeah.
No one's going to buy this crap. This is way too much money. Like, I'm so cheap. So
it was one of the rare occurrences where I was driving, actually.
Yeah.
I do remember this now.
Because I like ran the sale for my phone.
Yeah.
And then it sold out in like 2 minutes. And I thought something was wrong with my phone. And I was like, well, that's almost $4,000, like right away. And especially at that point of our band, that was like Solomon money. Like it was just so much gold. And, we just couldn't believe it. And so from there, I kept doing a few things, but they were always still tied to my band a little bit. And then our band. And then it just made sense to start bringing other bands onto the label. Because there was just such a desire for what we were doing. So the first non-brother thing was with the Ghost Wolves, which we actually met at Mile, and they're dear friends of ours. I talk to them all the time, and it just kept going from there. And I've just kind of been the slow, steady march of progress. And there's certain things that I do that no one on the planet. I make the only LED records in the world. They're like remote controlled, and they play just like a regular record and sand filled, and I've done gunpowder and razor blade filled records and like all kinds of weird glow in the dark stuff. And so it's just kept building and building and building. And we really love a lot of like working class bands just that are hustling. Those are the people we love the most, like Volk and people that are they're working hard. That's the stuff we want to be in. And I about 4 months ago was starting to apply for real jobs. So I've been running the label pretty heavily for 2 or 3 years now, and I had some weird scrubby jobs to get me by with that, and I was going to go back to like real work. And I was like, well, before I do that, I'll open up this manufacturing side. I always had this idea that like this is like from the very beginning, for whatever reason, I thought I could be like the ace of cakes of like custom vinyl. And like if for these huge brands and bands, like, oh, we want, new X-Men movies coming out. We want this like Wolverine record, and we want like, I don't know, like, fangs out on the side of it, or just something insane. And so I opened up the manufacturing side of my business called Romanus Custom Vinyl Manufacturing, where people could come order all of this crazy custom stuff that I kept proprietary to our label and bands on our label for so long. And I still haven't even really advertised it yet. We're talking, this is like maybe 12 weeks ago. And since then, I'm getting phone calls regularly from Sony, The Orchard, Metal Blade Records, Relapse Records, Fat Possum Records. I just did liquid fills for Black Dahlia Murder. Like, they shared a video of the record I did. It got over 100,000 views in 24 hours. Like, just these insanely huge bands and insanely huge projects, like Universal, just all this stuff. And very much in the middle of that right now. Like, and that allowed me to go into that full time. And yeah, and that's like as of like 8 or 9 weeks ago.
Do you think that if it keeps snowballing, which it sounds like it will, do you think that's ever going to maybe make you step away from the band to keep up with demand?
No, I mean, demand's insane right now. Like the other day, I mean, I had well over 400 liquid-filled records in my house, and each one of those, start to finish, takes probably about 3 weeks to make. So,
if anything, I think it helps because my schedule is so difficult to work with because it's a retail schedule.
It works as a good excuse.
Yeah, so that him being his own boss makes it way easier to book things, and like if he had to have a real job, it would definitely make things more difficult, I think. So I think it actually in some ways kind of helps.
Yeah, so I mean we've had to slow down a little bit compared to where we were maybe 2 years ago, where we were doing 80 to 100 shows every year, and that's with him still having a full-time retail job.
We both got kids now, and it just
I've got a kid,
but we don't.
You've got 3.
Yeah, we're making it sound like we're still having a great time. We're still doing a lot of cool stuff. It's just we're making sure that the things that we're doing are more
focus on that experience as much as possible.
Like we're doing bigger things is what we're trying to do, and less of like we got to drive 10 hours to go play this show for 10 people and then drive back. We're not trying to do that a bunch anymore. We're trying to do more things that like are like either really cool experiences for us or things that we know like, all right, well, we know we've got fans here. This is going to be a big thing, or stuff like that, where we're just enjoying. Like we're making sure that we're making the best of our time, and just being good stewards of that, I guess.
Yeah.
You went to Third Man Records and met with Ben Blackwell.
Yeah.
He bought one of your Bones records, Dinosaur.
Yeah. So that was before that was even for sale.
That was like an early prototype kind of thing.
That was the first one. That was the first one I ever made.
Was he taking notes?
No. They're such good people. Anyone who runs a record label of any kind has respect for them, and like Sub Pop and just some of these really cool, innovative labels that have found their own niche and their own way to be dynamic. And no, I was just visiting. I was on a trip with my wife just down in Nashville, and she was just so adamant, like, no business while we're here. And I'm like, that's fine. And I brought this record with me, and I was just like, hey, I want to go stop here while we're here. And so I go and I say, hey, is Ben Blackwell here? I've got this. I don't know. I feel like he might want to see it. And this girl's like, what is it? And she goes, you made this? I go, yeah. And she goes, oh, he'll definitely want to see that. And he's eating like P.F. Chang's right now. He'll be back, so just wait here. And so he's like, how much do you want for it? And he just bought it off me on the spot. And that was the first one I ever made. And it was just like a cool little moment for me. And that same day I got to meet one of my other favorite label, like half owners or whatever, over at Infinity Cat. And same thing, just really cool. And I mean, the label at that point was more or less non-existent. It was like it didn't even really exist yet. It was just kind of like soon to exist. And it was just a cool little inspiring thing. That was a long time ago. That was like 6 years ago or something. So
how do you guys do the set list for your show?
We don't.
That one's a really easy one to answer. We don't.
We have a set list probably like 3 shows a year.
So occasionally we'll have to do these things that for a normal band would not be a big deal, I guess. We're like, the gigs where they'll pay you a bunch of money, but they want you to play for like 2 or 3 hours. Yeah. And they're like, that's fine if you've got like a big repertoire of music, or you want to play a bunch of covers, and you can do that. But that's when we have to write a set list, because we do have a bunch of songs. We've been doing this for a while. We've got a ton of songs. We could definitely fill 3 hours if we needed to. The problem is we have to, like, first of all, remember all of them and, like, know how to play them. So we, like, make a list of, like, all right, these are the songs we know we could definitely play. And then from that, we try to build, like, a set list. And we'll take, like, a break between sets or whatever. But those are the only times we really write a set list. Or if we're playing, like, like, we played here last night, didn't write a set list for that, but we're playing again tonight in the same town, then you're like, okay, we need to write a set list so we don't, like, play just accidentally the same set or whatever. So, in those occasions we do, but really we don't. And that's the beauty of a two-piece is Chris can be like, hey, I'm going to play this song. Or he'll just start playing a song, and I'll be like, all right, well, I guess that's what we're doing. There's been, I could count on one hand the number of times where he started to play something or I've started to play something, and the other one has been like, we're not doing that. That's not going to happen today. Like,
yeah, because we're like,
I don't know if I could do it. Like, it's never like, oh, I don't want to play that song. It's like, I don't know if I remember that right now.
And there's been times we earlier on would write some set lists, but like I always like am just looking at like kind of how the crowd was responding to certain stuff, and so like pretty quickly we discover like, well, having these set lists is pretty pointless because like if we feel like we need to change it, we're just always going to change it.
Yep.
And Warner at first,
I hated it. It would make like
he did like I don't
know if I was like nervous or what, but I needed the structure for whatever reason.
It was
to,
a
like,
different time in
I
your
need
life.
to know what we're playing, and he would either not have one, or like the worst would be he'd like have one, give me a copy of it, and he would completely go off off base with it, like not even follow it at all. And that would drive me so crazy that at one point I was like, "Don't even give me a set list. If you're gonna do that."
And once we talked about it, it made more sense.
Yeah.
I was like, "Look, it's because I was like, there'd be times of like, all right, this crowd is dead. Like, they're dead.
And you're like, we need a faster song.
We need a faster
or
song, or like one of us needs to go into the crowd and go do something. Like, and so we're gonna go just do this now. And now, like, we wouldn't have it any other way.
Oh yeah, now it's the best. I love playing with no set list.
Yeah,
like sometimes like even when I play drums at church or whatever, I feel better when I'm like, if I over rehearse them, then I don't feel as good. I'm like, I'd rather be like, make sure there's songs I know, and we'll just let me know when we're playing them, because that's just the way I've lived for so long with this band that like any other time now I kind of don't. I'd prefer not to have a set list.
Are you guys working on any new material?
Oh yeah.
It's been a slow grind.
It is,
but yeah,
we're bound and determined to have an album out this year. Like, that's the goal, and we've kind of got a date in mind, but we've got to finish writing it first, and we've been doing these little like writing practice session things. I don't know. We've got some.
We
stuff.
don't practice. We basically only get together to write.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Especially when we're doing a lot of
all the time
tour dates. It's like, if we're playing a bunch, we don't really need to
if you
practice
need another song, go listen to the CD.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so, but we have started writing some stuff. We actually have written a lot over the last year, but like we're finally like, okay, we're in writing mode full on now, and we wrote like 2 songs this week, and we got
bones to some stuff. So
we've got some structure for.
And the
like,
advantage to owning a record
stuff.
label is like we can put something out anytime we want. There's no like we're not at the mercy of anyone's schedule.
Right.
Up to the point that like I will always give some other band on our label generally preferential treatment over our own.
Right.
Where I'm like, hey, this band really wants their stuff to come out this month. Like, I'll let them do that because
and we'll be like, we'll push it back to the next month.
Because we can do whatever we need to. So so that's our plan. We'll see if we achieve that goal.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're trying.
There's a solid chance there'll be a new Brother album in 2020 for sure.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us for an episode of Core here on WCZR Code Zero Radio.
Thanks for having us.
It's been fun.
And safe travels after the weekend of crazy shows and if you haven't seen Brother, you have to go see them. It's one of those things you have to experience.
We're going to be at the Olive Garden at noon today, like Post Malone.
Yeah.
Where's your favorite Appleton place to go?
Well, we had Golden Corral last night. It was awesome.
Yeah. We're really commercial this weekend. But if we're talking about like favorite places
Munchies.
in like Appleton places, Munchies Pizza is like.
Yeah, we'll get Munchies tonight.
Yeah, we will for sure do that. Or that like taco.
Oh, Mr. Taco.
Yeah, Mr. Taco is also really great.
For Pizza by Slice, Sal's is really good too.
Sal's is good too. Yeah. There's a lot of great places right there in the main core of Appleton, but yeah, Munchies is like our go-to. We have to get Munchies every time we're here.
Yeah, but Golden Corral tore it up last night. All right.
Yeah.
Anyone who says if you don't like if you're too good for Golden Corral, of course you ain't gonna like it.
Yeah.
You can't see the food if your nose is staring straight up into space. All right. I had an excellent meal last night.
It was good.
It's one of the last bastions of the true like what everyone's like the American melting pot is supposed to look like. You know what? There's true equality in Golden Corral.
Yeah, it's true. Stirs
my heart.
Yeah. I will say
I've never felt more patriotic in my life every time I'm in there.
I have to acknowledge that I feel like it did semi-wreck me. Like I'm feeling a little achy today.
Well, you ate a more diverse platter than I did.
I did. But it's okay. I'll be all right. I'll be good for Olive Garden today. So yeah.
Yeah.